Well, listen, today we have delivered the fiscal year 2014 budget to the City Council for them to begin their review of the budget and do their work. Once again, for the fourth time, we have delivered a balanced, fiscally responsible budget to the City Council that really, in my opinion, returns a tremendous value to taxpayers. Over the last 4 years, certainly we've faced some challenging times in the city of Albuquerque, state of New Mexico, and around the country. With the help of our staff and all of our directors and the employees of the city of Albuquerque, we've been able to actually keep services at a very high level while being fiscally responsible. So I'm going to go through a couple of the specifics, and then we'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have. The general fund budget for this year is proposed at $480.9 million. That's just a 1.1 increase over last year's original FY13 budget. So we've really held the line on spending in the city of Albuquerque. As many of you already know, the original 5-year forecast for this year projected a shortfall of almost $18 million. And that is actually the second best 5-year forecast I've had since I've been the mayor. Last year we had the best 5-year forecast that we've had, I think, in 7 years. But it just goes to show that cities across the country, including Albuquerque, are continuing to have to face fiscal challenges. But quite frankly, compared to the $90 million deficit that the administration faced during this first several months that I was in office, we've come a long way, and we've really gotten fiscal responsibility back to the forefront in the city of Albuquerque. All total, between the 4 budgets that I've turned into the City Council since I've been the mayor, we've avoided almost $160 million in taxpayer expenditures, once again, through careful use of resources, really taking stewardship into account with taxpayer monies and being responsible in our budgeting processes. As you know, as I said earlier, we are still in the midst of some difficult economic times, so thank you to everybody at the city who has made the decisions that we've needed to make sure that we keep services at a very high level to our city. We have not had any layoffs since I've been the mayor through this $160 million worth of cost avoidance that we've had. And if you compare that to a number since 2008, local governments around the country have decreased their employment by approximately 650,000 jobs. And in many cities that includes firefighters, police officers, and other critical services for the city. We've actually added firefighters during the same time. Every year we continue to run a more efficient local government while investing in public safety in our community, and we're consistently striving to be good stewards, as I said, of taxpayer resources. And I'm proud to say that all of that has come together recently with the announcement by Standard & Poor's that we received a AAA bond rating. We just issued bonds for Paseo and I-25 and the GEO bond last week, and with that AAA bond rating we were able to secure a very attractive interest rate for the taxpayers of Albuquerque. As the economy continues to bring challenges, balancing the budget, of course, is no easy feat, but it's a challenge that we take seriously, and we're making great progress. So I want to go through just a few of the highlights with you today. There's also additional information that you can take with you. But this year's budget includes no tax increases, it includes no pay cuts, and it includes no layoffs at the city of Albuquerque. It actually includes funding for a 1% across-the-board raise for all employees at the city of Albuquerque. I've excluded myself from that. But we have a 1% raise across the board, top to bottom, that we've funded in there. Of course, the raises are subject to negotiations with labor units, but the actual dollars are in there. We've reduced 40 vacant positions, and I want to go through some of the positional things that we're talking about. We've had a reduction of 40 vacant positions, most of which have been vacant for more than a year. So the citizens of Albuquerque, I don't believe, are going to notice any service declines from those 40 positions that were being deleted permanently from the city. So we're continuing to shrink the size of city government. However, the good news is, because we've been so efficient and we've worked diligently over the last several years to make sure that we keep spending in line with our resources in the belt tightening that we have, we are going to be starting in the next several weeks releasing over 150 vacant positions throughout the city of Albuquerque. So I think the citizens of Albuquerque are going to see an increase in the services, and some of those, we'll get you a list of some of those positions, but there are positions that we will be releasing for hire through the different departments, including at the Animal Welfare Department, at the Biopark, at our libraries, Throughout city government, we have these positions that have been vacant, or they've been vacant either for days, weeks, sometimes months, and we feel like we are now in a position to start releasing those positions. So we think that's going to be a great asset for the community, and it's going to help. You're going to see a difference in the city of Albuquerque. We're going to have continued funding for some of the critical programs that we've started during the administration that we've sent down, including Running Start for Careers, which is our high school retention and workforce development program. It includes continued funding for the International Baccalaureate Program, which is our partnership with Albuquerque Public Schools, which we think is meaningful. And it includes $3 million one-time, not recurring, but $3 million one-time money for projects in ABQ, the plan. We are just finishing up our river visioning plan, our 50-mile bicycle loop plan, our Route 66 plan, and there are plenty of projects that we can now start getting on paper in the city of Albuquerque, and so we're going to ask the City Council for their support for that as well. We also have some funding for personnel software that will help expedite the screening and the hiring process so that our directors can get folks hired and working for the citizens of Albuquerque even sooner, and that's going to help save tax dollars as well. A lot of people have asked about the matrix study. We commissioned a $200,000 study by an outside independent consultant almost a little over a year ago, I believe. And we, at this point, have received the draft matrix study. We have had our staff and our directors go through the matrix study, and they've come back with their recommendations. A number of those recommendations are included in this year's budget. We have a separate press release for you today talking about matrix, but the long and the short of it is this. We've accepted over 80% of the recommendations that have been made by matrix in their independent outside third-party look at the city of Albuquerque. Of those, wait for the phone there.
I'm sorry.
Got it? All right. Actual savings based on the implementation recommendations to date have recovered more than the $200,000 cost of the study, and staff reductions at a couple of our departments just by themselves actually will generate more than $500,000 in savings according to our budget staff and our COO in FY14 alone. And many of those savings are recurring over the years. So certainly the matrix study has done several things for us. It has allowed us to look at new ideas and best practices from around the country, but it has also verified some of the cost savings measures that we have put into place in the city of Albuquerque, and those many of them are included in the city of Albuquerque budget this year. The ones that are in progress will be incorporated as time goes forward, and we'll be happy to answer any questions on that as well. So those are the highlights. It's a $480 million budget. There are no layoffs. There are no tax increases. We have 40 vacant positions that have been vacant for more than a year that we will permanently delete. We will be in the hiring process for over 150 vacant positions, whether they've been vacant for days, weeks, months, or longer. And that's going to be from a department-wide standpoint across the city of Albuquerque. We have included dollars for ABQ, the plan, and we think we're once again sending the City Council a very solid document, a foundationally solid document that's fiscally responsible, it's balanced, it gives them a great place to start with the budget. Now they will do their work, and we will be happy to work with the City Council between now and the time that they come up with their budget recommendations later in the spring, in May, and we will continue to provide the taxpayers of Albuquerque a great value for the dollars that they send in. We will keep services high to the city, and even though we've had some difficult economic times, I think the staff has done well. I want to really thank Jerry Romero, his entire staff at Budget. You guys have done a wonderful job taking the resources that we have. All of the directors, they've worked with us through the last 3 years. This is our 4th budget. We faced the challenges head on, and you guys are doing a fantastic job. And I just want to thank all the employees at the city of Albuquerque. I talk to mayors around the country on a regular basis, and everybody's been in the same boat for the last couple of years. Resources have not grown as fast as cities would like, but mayors are on the front line of government, and we have to balance budgets, and we have to put the services on the street, and we're happy to do it, but it takes the employees to do that. So a very special thanks to the employees of the city of Albuquerque for all the great work that they've been doing. With that, I will be happy to answer any questions. I've got staff here that can answer some of the technical questions that you might have, and we can go from there.
I have a question.
Sure.
With no tax increases, no layoffs, yet a 1% raise across the board,
yes.
How is that possible, or where does that money come from?
It's possible because we've actually tightened our belts over the last several years. We've made sure that we haven't over budgeted. One of the problems that I recognized when we came into the city of Albuquerque is the City of Albuquerque budget grew by more than 40%, almost over 45% during the mid-2000s. And we just got to a point where government had grown to the point where we couldn't afford it. So we've made some very, very difficult decisions, and the reason that we're in a position to offer a 1% raise across the board this year is because of the difficult decisions we made in the first, second, and third budgets. So some of it is simply based on taking the resources that we have, realigning those, being efficient. We've created, I think, I don't have it in front of me, but I think there's over $14 million in efficiencies, some of them one-time, some of them recurring, that we've been able to establish in the City of Albuquerque through our ESA, Efficiency, Stewardship, and Accountability programs. All of this comes together, and then we go to Jerry Romero and our budgeting staff, and we ask them to make sure that that the budget is structurally balanced as well, and then we create opportunities. But it's come through a lot of hard work, and it's come through a lot of difficult decisions.
So if it's been difficult in years past, would you say right now the city overall with our budget, we're fine with the way our budget is, or do we still have some deeper challenges that aren't on the surface?
Well, I think that we have done a great job of bringing the fiscal ship back upright. You know, we've got the rudder in the water. We're moving forward because of, like I say, because the original. Remember the first year we had to do a pay cut across the board for all of our employees. This will be the third budget now in a row where we've been able to offer some kind of a raise to our employees. So we cut pay the first year because we had to, because we didn't want to face layoffs. I felt as a mayor at that time it was much better to have everybody share in the burden, keep people on the job, rather than this join in on this 650,000 layoffs around the country that affect public safety, that affect public services to those communities. And we did that. But then the year after, we had a 1% raise for employees under $50,000 once again last year. And now because of those fiscal, responsible budgeting, now we're able for the first time to offer an across-the-board raise of 1%.
And what about these 150 previously vacant positions? Can you get into it all, what that could mean for people in our community? Does that mean 150 more jobs?
Sure, I'll tell you what it means. These are positions that are currently at the City of Albuquerque, but that we've held vacant. Some of them have been for not a very long period of time. Some of them have been for quite a long period of time. But these are positions that Jerry Romero will release, if you will, and so directors will be able to go out and hire positions. They run the gamut across the board, from animal welfare to libraries to maintenance workers, all the way across the board. Jerry Romero will be happy to give you a list of those 160 positions so that you have those on your way out. But suffice it to say that, once again, in addition to the raise, we're going to be able to actually have more employees out there working for the citizens and on behalf of the citizens of Albuquerque. Yes?
A couple questions, just clarifying that question. So we have 150, but that's minus the 40 you're eliminating, so it's really an addition of 110 then?
Jerry, you want to address that? Let me bring Jerry Romero up, because I want to make sure you're clear on that. This is Jerry Romero. Jerry's our budget director.
Morning, everybody.
He's got all the long lists, so he can.
So what we have is about 386 vacant positions citywide right now, not including fire and policemen. Of those, we've been holding about 200, and as the mayor said, we're cutting 40 of those, so it's something in the neighborhood of 160. I mean, this is obviously a dynamic process, hiring and people coming and going with the city, but roughly 160 positions that previously had been held will be released in the coming weeks.
But then there will be 40 that will be eliminated.
The 160 is a net number, is my understanding.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, as you
So you can start with 200, reduce 40, and then you end up with your 160. Is that what you're saying?
Current vacancy list, 386. Of those, we were holding 200. We had 4 months of negative GRT growth, so we were anticipating having to cut more. As it turns out, our projections now are holding, so we're only going to cut 40 of the 200.
Got it.
Okay.
All right.
And the reason for that is because it is, as Jerry said, it's a dynamic situation. Each month, the most of the revenues that come into the City of Albuquerque are through gross receipts taxes. So the national economy, the state economy, the local economy affect our revenue sources. And because we try to be fiscally conservative in how we do our budgeting, we didn't want to release those positions too soon until we knew what things looked like. In fact, in this budget, I didn't mention it earlier, we've anticipated a 1.7% revenue growth for next year, and that's
In GRT.
yeah, in gross receipts taxes, and that's a large part of our budget. the reason we've done that, we actually have projections that show that we could almost double that 1.7%. One of the things we've been consistent with in the administration is to try to be conservative with those revenue estimates, because one of the ways that people can avoid making difficult decisions is they can just pick a higher revenue number out of the air and poof, your problems are gone on paper. But we've not done that, and once again, going back to your original question, that because we've been conservative all along, now we find ourselves in a better position. We'll continue to keep an eye on it, but we want to make sure that we're being responsible.
Okay, then to clarify, on this 1% across the board, does that
Yes.
include police and fire?
It does. It does include police and fire. Out of that, and I'm looking for my. You want to grab that? Do you have the Bree? Can I have the press release real quick? There's two numbers I want to look at here. The 1% across the board raise, and I'm looking at that, Jerry. What's the total cost? I have the total cost here. $2.3 million. So there's $2.3 million of that. I'm sorry.
It's 2.9 for all, 700 for non-union, 2.2, 2.3 for union.
So we have union and non-union employees at the city of Albuquerque. So there's $700,000 in the budget for non-union employees. Those will take effect on July 1st, like they have the last 2 years. The $2.2 million that has been reserved in this budget for labor negotiations will certainly be dependent upon negotiations and coming to agreement on contracts for those raises.
And what is the status of that?
Excuse me. Sorry.
What is the status of the past contracts that were never honored for police and fire, their raises?
Well, I think the way your question is phrased, I don't think is accurate. We actually, there were agreements in place that were based on appropriations. Those appropriations did not come through the city council, and so we have honored those contracts, in my opinion. Those have gone through the court systems. At this point, they're still pending. I think there's still several that are pending, and I don't want to comment on anything that's pending in the court system, but certainly all of those contracts were based on appropriating the dollars, and because those dollars haven't been appropriated through the city council to this point, you know, now once they're appropriated, like last year we had a 1% under 50,000. That affected almost everyone but the police department because they're higher paid, most of them, than $50,000. The year before, the same situation. Then and once again this year, we'll put those dollars forward. We'll make them part of our labor negotiations. We have reached agreement, I think, with the management union 2 years in a row now. I think we have, I believe we have a new contract, or we have had a contract with our security forces at the city of Albuquerque. So we have had some contracts negotiated. Others we've not been able to reach agreement at this point.
Does the budget authorize 1,100 officers?
It does authorize 1,100 officers. That's an important point that I didn't have in there earlier, Dan. Yes, it does. Now we've got less than 1,100 officers today, and this authorizes those 1,100 officers. We have taken a vacancy savings to reflect the actual number of officers that we currently have, but that vacancy savings, as we start, you know, having more academies, adding officers to APD, of course, we've taken some measures to put on some additional requirements to get into the police academy, and but as we add officers and we go along, that vacancy savings can certainly be adjusted, but we certainly don't want to leave a vacancy savings on the table if we don't have to. But the short answer to your question, and I think Jerry can confirm that, is this budget does authorize 1,100 police officers.
Do you know what they are short man numbers, what the vacancies are with police? I don't think fire has the issue as much as
Chief Schultz is here. Would you like to come up and talk about that, Chief, real quick? Didn't know you were going to get to be in the press conference today.
The total number of vacancies currently is about 115 officers.
But you're working to reach 1,100 is the goal.
Yes, there's an academy class that will start in 2 weeks, and we continue to recruit for 2 more classes that we'd like to have start before the end of the year.
What about fire? I don't know the situation with this proposed changeover. Is that going to affect man numbers and all of that? No.
You talking about the new rescue units?
Yes.
No, my understanding from Chief Breen is that will not affect man. It'll put we're doubling the number of rescue units in the city of Albuquerque from 20 to 40.
Doubling the number of
paramedic units, I'm sorry, in the city, and we're doing that through the apparatus that the firefighters will have.
And is the fire department short a significant amount of?
Chief, you want to come up and say anything about that? Come on up and do it on, come on up and you can answer on.
Just trying to avoid this today. Currently, we have a cadet class in place with 20 cadets, and we're down 10 firefighters today. And that's based on attrition and retirements for the most part.
And with some of the para changes, it'll be interesting to see. You know, the para changes at the state level were driving some concerns with attrition. The para bill that passed, if it's signed by the governor, I think my guys are telling me that's. You want to chime in on that?
Sure. There's been some retirement reform that's waiting on the governor's desk, and when she signs that, if she signs that, it actually offers an incentive for people to stay up to 25 years. So we're not expecting, at least in the fire department, we're not expecting to see any mass exodus. In
its current format, the way
Right.
that it would pass the legislature. So I've talked to both of my chiefs, and I think that they believe that as it passed, it will not lead to mass attrition at either department.
The full budget book will be online today?
It's right here.
It's online right.
It's online right now. And there's additional information in your press releases, and that's the reason I wanted that press release, because I couldn't the number between the raises between union and non-union was the number I needed, but I think we've explained that already.